In this video, we move on to the scene-wise summary of Mother Courage and her children. Scene 1. The play opens in Dalarna in Sweden in the year 1624. In the first scene, we meet a sergeant and recruiting officer. They are standing together, talking in the freezing snow. On the stage, a placard is displayed, and in that placard, the name of the place is written, that is Dalarna. The recruiting officer is telling the sergeant about the difficulties of recruiting people to army. He is so dejected that he couldn't find enough people interested in joining the army. He has only a few days left and he has to recruit 4 companies of soldiers. But the young men are not interested. He says they don't have that sense of morality or duty as the previous generations. The sergeant also agrees to it. And as the conversation goes on, we hear the noise of a cart approaching. And from a distance, a cart is approaching. It is a covered cart. It rolls onto the stage. It is pulled by Mother Courage's 2 sons, Ailif and Swiss Cheese. And inside the cart is Mother Courage sitting along with her daughter Catherine. And we understand that Mother Courage is a provisioner and she travels from battle site to battle site, singing songs and convincing the soldiers to buy her things. So the sergeant asks her the papers, the documents needed to prove her identity. And in those documents, her real name is shown as Anna Fearling. Mother Courage is unable to produce any document with the name Courage. In all the documents that she has, her real name is Anna Fearling. So she explains why she came to be called Courage. She says that once she drove her cart through the bombardment of Riga in order to sell loaves of bread to the soldiers. And that is how she got the name Mother Courage. And next, she introduces her children one by one. And we see that all 3 of her children are born to 3 different fathers belonging to 3 different nationalities. Ailif is the son of a soldier. Swiss Cheese is the son of a Swiss engineer. And Catherine is the son of a German. Catherine is the daughter of a German. Now the 2 officers scold her for not showing the correct papers, and quickly Elif threatens to punch them. Mother Courage silences Elif and she attempts to make a sail. She shows the soldiers, the sergeant and the recruiting officer, the things that she has in her wagon. But both of them are not interested. The recruiting officer, however, seems to be interested in her son Ailif. The officer tries to convince him to join the army. Mother Courage, at first, she tries to change the conversation and convince the recruiter that Elif will be a terrible soldier. But when the recruiter continues his pestering, she pulls out a knife and warns him to leave her children alone. So there arose an argument between Mother Courage and the sergeant, and Mother Courage tells the sergeant that she has second sight. That means she has some supernatural powers. Then she draws black crosses on slips of paper. And then she tells the sergeant as well as her children to take a slip or a lot, and all of them take a lot which has a black cross in it, and that signifies death. So, in the opening scene itself, Brecht signals the theme of death. All her children, Elif, Swiss cheese, as well as Catherine, all of them take that slip with the black cross, and that shows all her children are to die in the war. And after this, we see the recruiting officer leads Elif off into the fields, whereas Mother Courage is occupied with the sergeant. She is talking with him, she is arguing with him, she is trying to sell a belt buckle to the sergeant, and she is arguing over the prices. Catherine, her dumb daughter, leaps from the cart and she is making uh, vague noises. But Mother Courage is occupied with her trade and she pays no attention to Catherine. And finally, she succeeds in making some profit out of that sale. But by that time, her son Elif is taken away. But she seems quite unaware about that. She turns to Catherine and Swiss cheese and tells them that you have to pull the cart now. So both of them harness and pull the cart off into the distance, and then the sergeant, he speaks a final couplet in that scene 1, and it says, if the war provides, then you have to give it something too. So, if we analyze the first scene, we see that Brecht opened his play with a conversation between two ordinary soldiers. And it itself implies that this is a play about the war's effect on little people, on ordinary people. And rather than glamorizing war and soldiers, here we see a recruiting officer crying about how difficult it is to get people recruited into the army. So the army is presented from the bottom up rather than from the top down. And here, by showing Mother Courage, who travels from battlefield to battlefield, we see that war is presented here as a system that many people depend upon for their lives. Another important tropes that we see in the first scene itself is motherhood. In the first scene itself, we see a mother who is de-glamorized. All that glory and romanticized version of motherhood is not what you find here. Mother Courage is more interested in business, in selling out her things, rather than to protect his son from being taken away. Similarly, the children, all born out of different fathers, different military men, we can see them as the children of war, because she begot them during her travels from one battlefield to another. And that black cross, that also refers to the death that will affect each of her children. So that is scene 1 of the play. Next, we move on to scene 2. Next, we move on to scene 2. 2 years have passed. The year is 1626. Mother Courage journeys through Poland with the Swedish army. She is going to meet her son Eilif after a long time. The stage is split in two. On one side, we see the general's tent, and on the other side, we see his kitchen. In the kitchen, we meet the general's cook, and there, Mother Courage is trying to sell a capon to the quick. Actually, she had stolen that capon from the peasants in the nearby village. After too much bargaining, the cook very unhappily buys the bird at a high price. Then the scene shifts to the parallel tent, and we see Eilif is invited by the general for dinner. The general appreciates Eilif for something that he has done, and we understand that he killed a few peasants and stole their oxen. Those peasants have hidden the oxen from the general's army. So the general appreciates him. He is delighted with the heroic deeds of Eilif and pours him some expensive wine. Along with Eilif and the general, a commander and chaplain is also present. The commander then asks the chaplain what he thinks about Eilif. Chaplain, he is a religious man. He tells that Jesus told men to love their neighbor. But he very cynically adds that one can love their neighbor at a time when their belly is full. But here, Eilif stole the oxen of the peasants for the sake of the soldiers in the army in order to feed them. So his action of stealing can be justified. So the commander and chaplain says that if any act is done for God's children, it is equal to doing it for God. And then the commander celebrates Eilif's bravery, calls him Julius Caesar, and declares that he should be presented to the king. Mother Courage, who is still in the kitchen, she is astonished to hear the voice of her son from the tent. The scene shifts between these two places, the tent and the kitchen. And again, inside the tent, we hear Eilif singing a song which his mother had taught him. The song is titled The Song of the Wise Woman and the Soldier. It tells the story of a soldier who joins the fight against the advice of a wise woman, and then he does not listen to the warnings of his girl, and finally he dies. Mother Courage hears the song from the kitchen and she starts beating a pan with a spoon. Eilif enters and both of them embrace each other. She then slaps her son around the face, and then she explains that I have slapped you not because you took the oxen, but because you are doing dangerous things, because he is putting himself in danger by stealing their oxen and killing the peasants. So the scene finishes in the middle of this, and the general and chaplain, all of them laugh at the mother and son. In this scene, the general as well as the commander was appreciating Eilif for stealing the oxen and for killing the peasants. But he has not done a military deed. What he has done is not a military conquest, but it is an illegal robbery. He did it because a hungry army could eat. On one side, we cannot justify his killing, but on the other side, he has helped uh, giving food to hungry persons. And likewise, the image of the general, he is leading a luxury life. He drinks very expensive wine, he eats moldy bread, and he is served with all those delicious cuisines in his tent. But on the other side, inside the kitchen, the cook is struggling to feed the army men. So we get a very ridiculous figure of the reality of war and the moral corruption behind it. This scene should be specially noted because we need to compare it with scene 8 that we will be discussing shortly. And the split stage with the tent on one side and the kitchen on the other side is also uh, an attempt to show the audience how to compare the two realities in war or in the military setting. We see so many images here. The cook is feeding the army with rotten meat in the kitchen, whereas Elif is trying to feed the army by stealing oxen on the other side. Mother Courage is also swindling peasants for a capon, whereas her son is swindling peasants for their oxen. Similarly, the high ranking official, the general, whereas the low ranked soldiers. So, this sort of juxtaposition is also important as it shows the different phases of reality associated with war. It de-glamorizes the concept of war and military. So Brecht here communicates the idea that war is a business idyll. War is also business, war is also commercialized. It is not really military conquest. The high ranking officers are living in luxury. War experience is not the same for all. Some of them profit out of it, while some others lose everything, including their life. So that is scene 2. Next, scene 3. 3 years later, she is following a Finnish regiment. It is indicated by the flag of Finland. Mother Courage is doing laundry with her daughter, Catherine, and then an armorer enters. An armorer is a maker, supplier, or repairer of weapons or armor. So he wants to sell some ammunition, some weapons to Mother Courage. And she purchases it from him after a lot of bargaining. She purchases those weapons, those bag of bullets, with the intention of reselling it. Next, we see Swiss cheese. He is dressed in the uniform of a paymaster, and we understand that he has also become an employee of the war. Next, we see another character, Wet Portia. She is an alcoholic prostitute. Mother Courage befriends her. Both of them discuss the war's progress. Mother Courage really hopes that the war is prolonged because as long as the war goes on, it is a source of income for her. Wet Portia then sings a song. The song is titled Song of Fraternization, and she tells the background story behind that. She tells about her broken heart because a man she called the Puffing Piet It is actually the general's cook that we met in the last scene. He abandoned her on the battlefield when she was 16, and that is how she was forced into the life of a prostitution. And the song is also a warning to Catherine to stay away from men. And after the song, Wet Portier leaves behind her hat and her high heeled red boots, and she leaves. Just then, the cook and the chaplain enters. The chaplain tells Mother Courage that Elif is moving to a dangerous location and that he needs some money. He also tells her that there are chances that he might not return. That means he might die. And he tells that dying in a war pleases God, and Mother Courage should be proud of Elif's sacrifice. The cook has come along with the chaplain because he is sort of impressed, attracted by Mother Courage, and he wants to start a romantic relationship with her. Then the three of them continue their conversation about the war, and Mother Courage closes the conversation with an observation that the big shots in the war, or the big shots who wage the war, they always claim that they are waging this war in the name of God to make things bright and beautiful. But actually, they are the ones who are profiting out of this. So she tells, or she makes this observation, and at that time we see that while this conversation is going on, Catherine, her daughter, is trying on Portier's boots and hat, and she walks around imitating Wet Portier. Suddenly, there is the sound of gunfire, explosions, and the armorer comes hurriedly and he announces that the Catholics have now taken over the regiment. And very soon, we see that the chaplain changes his loyalty, he changes his robes, and Mother Courage also changes the flag. There was the Finnish flag, now she changes it. And she smears Catherine's face with ashes to make her look less attractive. Swiss cheese also appears on the scene with the cash box, and Mother Courage is horrified to learn that he wants to store it in her wagon. There is heavy gunshots and there is a scene break. 3 days later, Swiss cheese feels very sad and he is nervous that he has not been able to return the cash box to his sergeant. Swiss cheese decides to return the cash box to the sergeant despite any risk. Mother Courage and chaplain is present. Now they leave to buy a Catholic flag. Now that the power has changed, the power has shifted, she has to show some allegiance to the Catholic. Only then can she survive. She is happy that so far they have allowed her to continue her business. Now, before leaving, Mother Courage discovers that Catherine has stolen Wet Portier's red boots. Mother Courage and the chaplain leaves. After that, a man with an eye patch enters, and he has come in search of members belonging to the Finnish army. Catherine realizes this and she tries to warn her brother, Swiss Cheese. But because she is dumb, she is mute, Swiss Cheese ignores her, and shortly after, that man with the patch arrests Swiss Cheese. As Mother Courage arrives back with the chaplain, Swiss cheese is dragged back by two men. They are asking him about a sergeant. That man with the patch asks Mother Courage whether she knows Swiss cheese, and she suddenly denies knowing him, and he is taken away. Here, there is another scene break. That evening, the prostitute Wet Portier enters with a colonel. He is her new customer. Mother Courage makes a plan with Wet Portier, and Wet goes to the colonel and tells him to buy her Mother Courage's cart and supplies as a gift. Wet tells the colonel that she wants to start her own business. Okay. Mother Courage's plan is to use the 200 florins she receives for the cart that will be bought by the colonel for the prostitute, for Wet. So, with that money, she can release Swiss cheese. Okay, and she thinks that Swiss cheese has hidden the cash box, the regiment cash box, somewhere. So, when Swiss cheese is released, she can get the money from the regiment cash box and buy her cart back. So, this is her plan. Okay, so uh, the colonel agrees to buy the cart for Wet, and they also go and meet the sergeant who has captured Swiss cheese, and he also agrees that if the money is paid, Swiss cheese can be released. It is then that she learns that Swiss cheese has thrown the cash box in the river. It is not that he has hidden it somewhere as Mother Courage thought. So, hearing this, she, she asks Wet Portier to go back to the sergeant and tell him to reduce the amount to release Swiss cheese. The sergeant is infuriated, he gets angry, he refuses, and he suddenly executes Swiss cheese. And in this scene, we see the soldiers carry the dead body of Swiss cheese back to Mother Courage's cart, and again she denies knowing him. Now, this scene is the longest scene and as well as the most important scene in the play. And we see several themes being interplayed in this scene, like family versus business. We see that she's bargaining too long for Swiss cheese life, and that alone brings about her son's death. Her bargaining also shows that the little people cannot profit from war. The profit is always for the authorities. She bargains over the price of Swiss cheese life in the same way in which she negotiates over the price of the weapons with the armorer at the opening of this scene. Many a times we see that Mother Courage values money over humanity. And we even see that Swiss cheese honesty uh, has led to his death. And also, another significant idea is that when they come to know that the power has shifted, when the Catholics have taken over, the chaplain as well as Mother Courage is ready to change sides. The chaplain changes his robes, and Mother Courage raises the new flag of the Catholics. So here also we see that capitalism wins over religion. And another thing is Catherine. We see that Catherine tries on the high heeled boots and uh, her. At times, Mother Courage admits that Catherine wants marriage and children, but this never ending war prevents this. The red boots symbolize her sexual awakening. Similarly, Catherine is a helpless victim. Although she witnesses many of the harrowing events in the play, she cannot speak to stop them. She wants Swiss cheese, but then again, she is ignored. So the scene shows uh, the ordinary folk, what price the ordinary folk has to pay, even if it is victory, even if it is war, even if it is defeat. Whatever conflicts come, it is the common man who is suffering, the ordinary people who is suffering. Whatever changes affect, whatever power shifts happen, whichever government takes over, uh, the common man is always on the loser's side. So that is scene 3.